unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
You guys know the deal. Da-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. Doesn't that music just get you fired up? What's up, boys and girls, children of most ages? Hi, I am Christopher Rausch. I'm your No Excuses coach, back here with another episode of the Raw and Unscripted show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, the place where I help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. But on this particular show, Raw and Unscripted, what we do is we come here and we have raw and unscripted conversations with you, either just solo shows by myself, like we did have, I believe, last week and the week before I did a solo show, or we have fantastic guests coming on here and having a raw and unscripted conversation designed for us all, myself included, for us to walk away from a conversation with a different perspective, just a little bit of a different perspective on what it is that we think and we believe. Therefore, we shift that perspective and what we believe and we think, we're going to change the actions. And of course, we're going to change the results. And that's what my intention is for this show. Every single time I come to you guys, however I might say it, is the fact that I come to you because I learn from these experiences. I learn from the things that I say. I hold myself accountable when I give you guys advice. I'm like, Chris, you got to make sure you're doing that, because I'm a congruent dude. That's what you're going to see. That's what you're always going to get. It's one of the biggest compliments I get recently, probably in the last 2 years since I left corporate, is like, dude, you just seem to be you. It's just, you seem comfortable. You're this, you're that, you just seem happy. And I'm like, yeah, because I am just being me. It's been quite a journey for the 52 years I've been blessed to be breathing on this earth, to have the journey and have the experiences that I've had, to be able to go through them, to grow through them, to be able to look at and reflect upon the fact that every situation that has happened in my life has happened for me. And it's allowed me to become the strong dude that I am right now. And it's allowed me to become a successful coach, a successful speaker, author, podcast host, whatever it is that you want to put in front of it, husband, father, it's all of those situations that have created the person you see here today. And what we're going to be doing on the show tonight, especially, is we're going to be talking about some of the emotional situations that we've gone through in our past and the trauma that we tend to hold on to into adulthood that perhaps we can look forward to releasing, maybe even just tonight, through the experiences of what my guest is going to be sharing tonight. And I'm intrigued for this conversation because it's all about, how can we shift our perspective? That's what really this conversation is going to be about. So I want you guys to take notes on what speaks to you. Chime in on the comments. If something speaks to you, write it in there, because later on somebody else might miss that and they'll go back and they'll see that and they'll say, wow, that's really cool. Plus it knows, for myself and my guest, it lets us know what is speaking to you the most. So perhaps we can have more conversations on that. So we appreciate and love you guys. So questions are always welcome. We can stop and engage with the questions. This is for you. This is a conversation we're having at a bar or a coffee shop, wherever me and my guest are talking and you guys are listening and you're kind of wait, can I ask you guys a question about that? We all do it. I hope you guys do it, because you should always be asking questions. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. What's up, Nicole Tiffany Cruz? She says, so excited to hear this conversation. I'm excited to hear it too. Nicole Tiffany Cruz, how are you? I hope you're having an awesome evening. What would be your question for the doctor tonight? I would love to have your question as well. We got Ray in the house. What's up, Ray? He says, good evening, Misfits for Life. Yes, you guys are all my misfits for life. You guys are all my misfits for life. And as my misfits for life, I would love to ask you all a big favor. I just put something in the chat. It's right there. If you guys dig this show, this is the Raw and Unscripted show. This originally started off as a podcast. And I went through some situations and wasn't updating the podcast as much as I was doing the video cast here. But now I'm happy to say that all of the shows are on podcast. So if you go to that, you can click the player and you can find the podcast anywhere you want it, like Spotify, iTunes, whatever, iHeartRadio. My podcast is now on iHeartRadio. So we're everywhere your podcast is. I would love for you to go subscribe to it, download it, listen to it. There's a lot of shows that you maybe have missed. There's some great shows in there. I wish I would have kept better track of which ones that, especially that I did, that I was on fire, that I really dug. So there's a lot of great episodes in there. I would love for you to share this. I want to grow the podcast. It's not been a focus of mine at all for the last couple of years. I've been doing the show. I've been enjoying doing this video cast and doing it live. But really getting the podcast out there is my next goal, so that I can reach more people who are listening to it on their devices and whatnot. So I would appreciate your help with that. So please share that out and go over there and check it out. I would appreciate that. So let's get into this. My guest tonight, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe we met on one of my favorite apps, as you guys know, Clubhouse. Met a lot of great people on Clubhouse. And if I remember correctly, and I'll ask him this when he comes on because he knows he's on the Raw and Unscripted show. I think if I remember right, it was Nicole. I think it was Nicole Tiffany Cruz. She said something about you should get to know Christopher Rausch, and I think his first impression of me was not so positive as it is now. So I'd love for him to talk about that. But he's an amazing dude. We've had conversations since, in-depth conversations. So I'm excited to have Mr. John Dunia, aka the Shame Doctor, on the Raw and Unscripted show. John, good evening, sir. How are you tonight?
Christopher, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. And I guess if I'm remembering right, Nicole is actually laughing about that. So yeah. So is that how we met? Because I've met so many people recently that I'm trying to, was it LinkedIn? Was it, Instagram? Was it Clubhouse? But I think it was on Clubhouse, right?
Clubhouse. And it was, you were hosting with Nicole, and she had asked me to come on. And Nicole is a big friend of mine. I adore her.
She's
and
amazing.
Yeah, she asked me to come on, and you're right. Your Raw and Unscripted method kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I wasn't really sure. I'm like, who is this guy? But the more you kept talking, I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. This guy, it's like, it doesn't really matter to me how you do it. How you cook in the kitchen, if you use a spatula, it doesn't matter. It's all about the message. And like you say, you're not for everybody. That's okay. But when you listen to your message, and one of the things that I don't know if your listeners know this, you are really emotional and I want to say soft to some degree when it comes to things emotionally, and it comes to being vulnerable. So it's not like you don't have this tough facade to hide anything. That's, like you say, that's just who you are. And the more I heard you, the more like, man, this guy's really good. And then we connected, and you asked me to be on your show, and I was thrilled. So yeah, that's that. You got the story right.
I love it, man. I appreciate you so much. I really do, because that's something I've been about most of my life. I used to have long hair. I've always looked tough. I've been bigger. I've always just looked intimidating. Before I had my teeth done, I got braces when I was 32. So up until 32, I really didn't smile. And I had a lot of I just looked like I was a mean person. I just didn't smile, but I was a sweetheart. Just people didn't ever get to know me. And I always felt that like I was misunderstood. And so I was very passionate back in the day, even when I was younger, like, don't judge a book by its cover. You never know. But I've made it my mission in life, wherever I've been, no matter what I've been doing, that I could be that homeless 7th grade dropout who can also say that he rides a Harley Davidson, and he's a rocker, and he has a master's degree, and he's just, who he is. Because I invite everybody to embrace that. I mean, we should all be who we are. It's taken me 52 years to get to this point right now. But it's one of the major reasons why I have coaching clients, because they're coming to me and they're like, Chris, I'm like you were. I was comfortably miserable. I'm one decision away from making it, but I'm scared shitless for making that pivot in my life. Can you help me? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to have this conversation, because I do have a couple of questions for you on this. But my first question is this. Okay, so you're known as the Shame Doctor. Why in the world would you pick shame to be the doctor of?
Well, because number one, it was the biggest issue in my own life. And I never saw it until my 22-year marriage began to fall apart. I was doing everything. I'm like, there's something wrong. I gotta, and I had gone to a therapist. Actually, my ex and I did, and the first one, and it was total waste. And right toward the end, I found the second one, and I was like, look, I'm going to do you tell me what books I need to read, what steps I need to follow, what this and that, because I need to fix myself. Well, little did I know that was my problem. Tell me what I need to do. And that whole idea of tell me what I need to do is really based on shame. I grew up in a religious organization that really used it as a tool.
Can you say which one?
I prefer not to at this point, because that's not really part of the story.
Cool.
I mean, it doesn't really make any difference. But the whole thing was, I was learned to think poorly of myself. No one's good. Only God is good. Well, I took that as, well, you know what? If that's true, maybe the worse I feel about myself, the more I'm going to please God. And you can imagine that's a great environment for shame to thrive.
Oh yeah.
So I was always never enough, and that was just what I expected, what I understood. If anything happened to me positive, it was because it was luck or whatever, God's grace, whatever you want to call it. And so I didn't realize it was my way of thinking was, tell me what I need to do, right? Tell me what I need to do to go to heaven or to be a good person, all these kinds of things. So when I left that organization at the age of 30, I had was coaching actually the lady I was going to marry. I was coaching her kids, and I met her. Well, when we got married, it's like, tell me what I need to do to be a good husband, to be a good father. I didn't realize that this way of thinking, I thought when I left the organization, I left all that thinking behind, but I didn't. It followed me. And everything was basically all the negative things that I was told that I believed them. And that's really my definition of shame. Shame is the culmination of all the negative things that we've learned to believe about who we were and are. And when we accept those, they become facts. And facts don't change. The sun rises in the east. The only way it doesn't rise is if we call that a different direction. And we learn these negative things about ourselves and we think they're true, they can't change. And this whole idea of shame, it took me 7 months with my therapist. And one day, it actually is the day I refer to as my personal Independence Day. He was saying something to me. He's, John, it didn't matter. It didn't have to be your ex. It could have been anybody. You were going to be this kind of person. And it dawned on me. It just struck me not like a bolt of lightning, but the awareness just came. It's like, oh, it wasn't what people said to me. It was that I believed, that I accepted what they said. And that's where the whole idea came. Now, it didn't just all of a sudden turn on a dime and everything stopped becoming shame. No, the battle was coming. In fact, I remember in that session, I was sitting there thinking, oh man, how could I be so stupid to be 53 and not even realize this? And I'm like, look there's shame already trying to. I had this revelation, and there's shame already trying to get me back, push me back down. And through it all, it was the whole thing. I mean, I walked out of that meeting going, okay, is what I'm doing based on shame? Seriously, I would in my car, I'm making the right turn. Is that because of shame?
Oh wow, you went deep, man. You went down the rabbit hole.
I just got super hyper aware. I mean, literally on the way home, I remember thinking, it was late, probably about 7 or 8 o'clock. I hadn't had dinner yet. Am I going to stop and buy something, or should I go home and eat? And again, is that shame? Should I spend that money on me, or should I go home and eat? I mean, everything. I ran it through this ringer, and I became so aware. And I would tell people about these situations, and even telling them, it made it become more aware. And I got too zealous because I realized that was my issue. And then I thought, well, everybody must have the same issue. And that was I guess a rookie mistake that maybe we all go through. I don't know if we should say we all, but I started to figure that was that way. So let me help you. But instead it became more of a, like, get away from me, kind of thing. But
right. Well, let's pump the brakes right there, because you've given me a lot of stuff that I can go off with.
Right.
So, and thank you for sharing that, because I mean, I knew a little bit of your backstory, but I wanted it to be fresh here when we were doing the interview, so I can actually think of the questions I wanted to ask spontaneously. So in thinking about that, I'm fascinated, and we kind of talked about it off camera before we came on here. I'm fascinated with the conditioning process that we go through from the age of 0 to 5. I'm fascinated with the fact that the part of our brain that has the emotional intelligence isn't even formed until after we're out of the womb, because our brain couldn't develop that big, so we wouldn't be able to fit through the birth canal. So a lot of this stuff is happening after we're here in the world. What are your thoughts on that, and how those beliefs are formed in those first 5 years based on our interactions with our caretakers? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness. I remember, I want to preface it with this. I remember going to the second therapist going, look, don't make me lie down on the couch and ask me about my childhood, because I've got a problem now. Right. And, and the whole thing
that's what the juice is, baby.
It was based on my childhood. No, you're absolutely right. I contend that we actually experience shame before we can learn to speak. And I'll give you a little example. You have a mother who might be, a single mother who might be frustrated, and she's got 3 kids. She's getting them all ready to go in a car, and she's changing the diapers and getting everybody in the car. And all of a sudden, what do I smell? I just changed your diapers. What's wrong with you? And the baby, maybe 2 years old or younger, senses that they did something wrong. And all I did was eliminate, that I can't help that. And And so we do something that our body naturally does, and now we're made to feel bad about it. And and the parent had no idea that they're putting shame on the child, right? But these things happen, and we sense these things about I did something wrong, and then we get older, and again, when we're born, we do 4 things: we breathe, we eat, we eliminate, and we cry, right? And everything else we're depending on somebody else. We have to form a relationship. We have to form a bond. Without that, we'll die. So this bond that we create with our parent or whoever caregiver it is, we learn to trust them. So anything they say, we're just going to swallow hook, line, and sinker. And when our parent, unwittingly or not, says, that was horrible, you're terrible, or whatever, you're clumsy, then we take those things and, well, they must be right because I've trusted them with everything else. That may not be the complete thought process, but that's what happens. So it just magnifies the older we get, with teachers or, whatever adults who have charge over us, and if we're not taught young, good, fresh ideas about how we can do things and we don't need to be held back, these things can really be damaging and add up to the shame in our lives.
Ooh, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't get that, rewind it and go listen to that again, because I was perfectly stated in the fact of where it does begin, because you bring up a brilliant point. I think about it in another way, a different kind of story, but you're absolutely right. It does happen even before we have the ability to speak with that. We can sense emotion. We may not have the memory of it necessarily, but that initial impact on our emotional intelligence and our emotional base definitely can have an impact on that. And I would tell people this story. I'd be like, okay, and think about this. And this is something that I personally experienced now with my son in watching how my reactions or my actions impact his thought processes and what he thinks about and what he's most concerned about. But I would tell people this, and I saw this one time. I was at a party and I watched these 2 women were talking, and this baby was off playing in the corner. And I noticed that baby was playing for a while and just doing awesome. And all of a sudden, the baby spilled something or whatever it was. And all of a sudden, the negative energy, the negative conditioning, the negative reinforcement of the intention at that point, it was like, the kid's sitting there thinking, okay, I'm doing this all great and I'm not doing anything wrong. And then all of a sudden I do one little thing and now I'm like, Johnny can be all good and not getting attention, but now Johnny does something bad and now he gets attention. It's a reverse conditioning. Like, okay, now what do I have to not do so I don't get that reaction again? So we spend our entire lives going, okay, I don't want the teacher's been mad at me once. Okay, see that reminds me of my mom. So, okay, as long as I don't make the teacher mad, then then if I have to make you happy, then who am I?
Yeah.
So talk to us about that. Talk to us about that, John, because what you said before is critical in this question as well. But talk to us about identity, the identities that we create based on those belief systems and how we can break out of those identities.
Well, for me, you hit the nail on the head, because when you have this whole idea of tell me what I need to do, that I had probably starting around 11 years old, okay, you don't realize because you're expecting other people to tell you how you are. I actually was at a point where if I could predict what my spiritual leaders or coaches, whatever you want to call them, would tell me to do, then I felt like I was becoming closer to that ideal, closer to God, whatever you want to call it. And I'm predicting the behavior that I should be doing. So you talk about somebody who really doesn't know. I mean, it doesn't matter. What do you like to eat, John? I don't care. Food. It doesn't matter to me. So the whole idea of shame, you're right. It really it keeps our identity away from us. And just listening to ourselves and sitting, especially if somebody like me who into his teens, into his early 20s, never really had an identity. I mean, a true one. I was a coach. I was a bus driver. I played the trumpet. I taught certain things, right? But it was all duty. It wasn't who I was. I mean, certain
what you
things
did,
were,
but not what you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that shame only adds to it, because see, you're not good. See this. See, you deserve that. And it just compounded it. So when we can heal from these times, and the earlier the better. Believe me, it's not too late. I was 53 before this, So I don't think there's ever a too late. I see kids in their 20s who are getting an idea of certain things, and I'm like, man, that's great. And I really promote it and I compliment them for it because, mostly from baby boomers, they're getting the crap that they're just lazy, no good, live in their parents' basement type people. So I always go out of my way to sorry, I'm getting a little off topic there, but no, like I say, in terms of your identity, shame is an identity killer for sure.
Mm-hmm. How do we in thinking about this, how do we take childhood shame and childhood trauma in your situation? What are like a couple of key steps that each one of us could take, like 3 steps that we each can take to say, okay, listen, I recognize that there was a traumatic experience when I was 6 years old. I recognize that I've carried that trauma around with me and then it's working against me in a form of self-sabotage. What can we do individually to reframe our perspective about that? Because I have the belief that it happened for us, and that it's our opportunity to process the emotion, process the value and the lesson of what that taught us. What are your thoughts and what we could do to walk people through releasing some of that childhood shame and that guilt?
I'm going to have to preface it with this because, again, a lot of what I do, Shame Doctor, has to do with healing. Okay. And it's emotional healing. And I use a lot of time. I use to compare emotional healing with physical healing because there are so many good ideas in the physical healing that work in emotional healing. So when you're looking at these issues that happened in our past, was it a minor cut? Was it a broken bone? Did it need stitches? Does it need heart surgery? Is it an amputation? So there's different levels of our traumatic experiences. So obviously the ones that aren't that bad, there's a little skin cut. There's simple things we can do. The deeper
before you tell me,
sure.
how do we identify what is a small versus a gash? Because I would imagine each one of us has a different perspective based on the situations we're in.
I think that's really going to be a personal choice. I think you look at the damage that you could. If something happens when you're 6 years old, and you can still remember it, and you still wake up in a sweat, that's obviously that's. I don't want to call it. That's hard surgery. That's a big one.
Sure.
And just like when we need a doctor, a specialist to help us with that, we very well may need somebody who specializes in emotional healing. They may be more difficult. It might be more difficult than for us to overcome. It's not always impossible, and it might take longer. But that's the difficulty in really saying, I can give you a few steps, but I would have to use an example which would wrap around a particular level of healing.
Go for it.
One of the stories that I tell about in my book happened to me when I was 13 years old, and this gentleman who was he was the headmaster of the school, he was the head of the church, everything. I literally looked at this man as if every word he spoke from God's mouth to his lips, so that he was speaking from God. Okay. And when you're at that point, when you think this and this guy tells you something, then it's God telling you, right? Well, I had done something. I'm not going to go into the details of what I did, but I was at a football camp, and every day we had a little devotional period. And we were at this devotional period, and he was like, "What were you trying to do? Burn down the forest?" And I wasn't. I'm gonna have to tell the story, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I see a bong. I see a. No, I'm just kidding.
No. It was the end of football practice in the morning. We were all showering up, and it was in the woods up in Wrightwood, California, up in the woods. So I don't know why I was singing the song, "Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match." And this guy whips out a little Ohio blue tip strike anywhere match, and he hands it to me, right? Again, we're in the shower room. The floor is wet. I rub the match head on the floor thinking it doesn't work. I strike it. It strikes. I walk over to the faucet, douse it out, throw it in the trash. Think nothing of it. The next day, somebody must have told him, "What were you trying to do? Burn down the forest?" Now, I couldn't have done anything different, right? But here's God telling me I'm a horrible, terrible person, and I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling confusion because I don't know what I could have done. And I couldn't stand up and say, "But wait a minute," because that'd be like saying, "God, you're wrong." And after that incident, things changed. I wasn't, not me so much, but I was perceived as a different person. I was before then president of the class, captain of the teams. After that, I was still good in sports, but never a captain, never involved in anything. And that really shot my confidence. I was telling the story to my therapist, and as you can see, I get a little bit animated. And he was like, he's pointing out the anger. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, no, the anger is good. And the anger is good as long as I don't stay there. But let me get to the healing point. What happened, where the healing came was I didn't forgive him. Because, I mean, he's been dead 40 years. If he was alive now, he probably would say, I didn't do anything wrong. So it doesn't matter. I forgave that 13-year-old John for ever believing those things that I was told.
Yes.
That's where the healing started for me. You know, and one of the things that I tell people, if you're ever abused and some therapist or somebody tells you the first thing you have to do is forgive your abuser, let me at them, because they're gonna have to forgive me for punching them in the face then, because that is the most damaging thing you can tell anybody. I'm saying the first thing. I'm not saying that you can't eventually forgive. That's a personal choice, you know. And I would walk somebody through that in a very careful, strategic way, because you can't force somebody to do that first. I mean, think of somebody with, I don't even want to talk about horrible sexual abuse for years. Now you got to forgive that person before you can move on. I'm sorry.
Down the road, maybe. Forgive
right.
yourself who you were at that time and what you didn't know. I mean, there's all different ways to go off that, but you're absolutely right. Keep it in the positive.
Yeah. And most of the times in those situations, what do people say? What do I do to deserve it? Why is God punishing me? Why are these things? And they think they did something wrong to deserve it. And that sticks with them for years. You know, and that again, that's a deep wound. You don't just put a Band-Aid on it, it's gone overnight. That's why it's difficult to say, depending on the intensity of your wound. But for me, self-forgiveness is a huge part of our personal healing and our emotional healing and our personal growth.
Thank you for sharing that, John. That's powerful. That's powerful. When I think about shame or guilt, and I want to actually do this before I share this because I'm still not sure about it. In your opinion, what is the difference between shame and guilt?
Okay, I'm going to give you the definition, and then I'm going to give you a quick story so you'll explain it. Shame, again, is all the negative things that we've come to believe about who we were and are, and that's the negative feeling that we get. Guilt is the feeling we get when we've made a bad choice or done something or a bad decision. You know, let's say during the course of our talking here, I get really upset with you, and I yell and I say really bad, harsh things. Well, it wouldn't really matter to you to rub off your back, right? But let's say it made you feel really bad. When I'm done, I'm like, wow, John, that wasn't very smart. You see how bad Christopher feels? You see how bad you feel? And guilt sometimes can be a moral compass to help us change our future behaviors. Where shame would say, you know why you yelled at Christopher, John? Because you're stupid. You're an idiot. You can't help it. You don't think things. You're just dumb. And so shame puts the onus back on us, where guilt is more of we made a bad choice. We made a bad decision. Let's fix that in the future.
Okay. So now I'm glad you said that, because now I'll share what I share. When I was seeing my therapist years ago, one of the biggest questions that she asked me that really got me to think about things was, because she goes, who's Chris? And I'm like, I'm Chris. She goes, no, I feel like I got Coach Chris and all this other stuff. I'm like, I'm just being who I am. So if you have some way to get past it, I'd love to meet the other Chris, because this is all I know. And I was being dead serious with her, and she was kind of mad at me, and she thought I was playing her. And then she said, when did you stop being a kid? And so I had to think about it, and I was thinking about, well, I was a 7th grade homeless dropout. So when did I stop being a kid? Let's see, latchkey started, first grade. It was 7, 8. Start being a kid. I think I stopped being a kid like around 9 or 10. And so we talked about that. And through the process of that journey, when her asking me that question, I started analyzing things around that I found, which was interesting, is that I thought I would feel guilty based on your definition. I don't, but I would feel guilty if I was not being productive versus relaxing. So I'll give you an example, like Saturday afternoon at 2:00. I'm sitting here in my office. I have 2 PlayStations. I have guitars, but you would rarely catch me going, oh, I'm just going to play a video game right now. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. My brain says, no, Chris, you have so much stuff you need to do. You need to go do that. Then you get to relax. but then half the time I wouldn't go relax. So I would feel guilty if I didn't do what I needed to do. So is that a form of shame because because I was that people pleaser, because I was that person that was always struck. My previous identity was just like you were saying, I will do whatever I need to do to please everybody. I'll be who I need to be in order to make you guys all happy so that I can have the inclusion into your group, if you will. So talk to us about that, because I've always been fascinated as to why I thought that. And still to this day, when I think about it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, you still think about why you can't just sit down and read a book at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday.
Good question. Truly, the answer lies within you. What I tell people is I'm a guide. I try to help take them to that area where they make that decision. And it could be a little bit of both. The thing to remember is that shame is going to tell you, you know what, Chris, you can't change that guy. You're never going to be that guy who can play a video game in the middle of the day. Where guilt is, man, I let it did again. What am I going to do to change that behavior? I don't think I have to ask the no excuses coach what to do to change that behavior.
Just fucking do it.
Well, yeah. And my thing would be, you know what? Put it in your damn schedule. 2:00, play a game. That's what I would guess how you would coach your client. But to make that now, will you feel a little guilty or a little shame while you're doing it? You might. What's the remedy to that?
Do more of it.
No, you forgive yourself.
Huh?
Well, you can just forgive yourself.
Oh yeah.
And you I tell
what am I
people,
forgiving myself for if I'm doing it to fill my bucket? What do I would forgive myself for?
You forgive yourself for having the feelings of not relaxing and enjoying. I'm supposed to be relaxing and enjoying, but I want to get over so I can get back to work. So now you forgive yourself for being this, okay, I did it, but I didn't feel like I really did it. Then forgive yourself or be okay with it. Because
what you're saying.
What I tell people is we need to be okay with things. And if we're not okay with it, let's be okay that we're not okay with it. Because when we focus on that, man, you know what, Chris, you still that brings focus and attention to the issue. And it's like we can't get it out of our head. I gotta, there's a story that happened to me, and it's a long story. I'm gonna try to make it short. But there was this particular person that I was thinking about, that during while I was married, that sort of interrupted things. And one day my ex said to me, you know what? You can't get her out of your head. So I'm like, yeah, I can. So 2 hours goes by. Hey, I didn't think about it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I thought about her because I thought that I didn't think about her, right? and this vicious cycle happened. I am not kidding you. 6 months. I'm like, I wanted to cut my head off because I couldn't not think about her, because I couldn't think about not thinking about her because then I thought about her, right?
Don't think about purple elephants.
So one day I just said, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm done. I don't care. If she comes up, so what? I'm going to dismiss it. 2 or 3 days later, it was gone. It was that fast. And I realized that the reason it was still there, the reason I was so intense and mind fuck over it, because I was giving it all this attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like with your thing, I would say, you know what? Just do it. And if you're still nervous, then be okay that you're nervous. And say, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care if I'm nervous, but I'm going to do it anyways because that's my goal. Eventually, you tell yourself, and it's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. Whatever kid you want to be. Hey, I want to play my guitar, whatever it is. You might, again, I'm never going to suggest that you do something that's going to hurt a client or something else. That obviously you know that, but it is being in touch with our inner child is important. And believe me, it took me a long time to see that too.
Yes.
I hear people all the time saying, children, they just look at things certain ways, and it's so off the cuff. It's so often raw and unscripted, and it's just amazing sometimes what wisdom is there. Why don't we have that wisdom? Oh, because we have to be adults. We got to be men. We got to be hard. No showing emotion. Or all those false things that we've come to believe that we're supposed to be. And that's
our identity, again, back to our identity. Who am I? Yeah, exactly. I mean, what you just said was brilliant. I think about, the opportunity for us to, to just get real with ourselves. You know, you were talking about before the pain versus pleasure, principle. You know, the guy walks by and the dog is on the front porch and he's moaning. Why is your dog moaning? Oh, he's sitting on a nail. Why is he sitting on a nail? Because it's not painful enough for him to get up and move. You know, we do that. We sit there and we play that comfortably miserable game. I was telling somebody the other day, and I was telling them very viscerally, I'm like, I'm so fucking sick of people saying they don't know how, they don't know, when all you have to do is go to Google and YouTube and type it in and then do what the fuck it says over and over again until you realize the result. That's it. There, I'm your coach. Talk to us about that. Why are so many people stuck in that victim mindset when literally the answers are right here? I mean, the answers are we have the answers everywhere. Why are people avoiding the truth, John? Why? And how can we get them to start realizing the truth? Because the sooner they realize the truth, the sooner they come to clarity about their mission, their vision, and their why here on earth, then they can open themselves up like you and I have and be able to have amazing conversations with people, be able to live in our true brilliance, not be encumbered by all this baggage that we carry around from our fucking childhood. How can we help people break through that now? Like, what would you say to people to say, listen, the answers are within. You have the ability, you have the strength, you have the tenacity, you have the whatever it is that you think you're missing, you have it right now. How can we get that message across to them?
Well, I would say in most cases, maybe not all, there's a one-word answer for why that happens. And that's shame. And that's shame. Because when we believe these false things about us, they become true, and we can't change. Google's not going to change that. You can't Google, how do I change the sun, from rising in the east? I mean, you can Google it, but you're not going to find the answer. That's science. I mean, that happens. That happens. How we choose to think about ourselves isn't that concrete, is it? Well, for again, shame, I'm going to back up a little bit. Shame creates a full 180-degree spectrum of emotions, everything from complete unworthiness to total arrogance. So when you're on the complete unworthiness, you get that feeling of ominous, this foreboding, this pathos that you just aren't going to ever be able to come out from under it, and what happens after that, a lot of times, cutting people self-suicide is all kinds of negative things. And that's why, I can't say that for everybody, but if we're stuck in this place, see, shame is really complex, and there's no way I'm going to be able to cover it in one podcast. Right. That's why I cover it in my book and the many steps, because a lot of times I think about shame as like, the commercials where you got a devil on this shoulder and an angel here, and the angel's telling you to do good, and the devil's saying, do this. Well, shame is like the devil here, and there's no angel. It's constantly at you. And in some ways, it doesn't seem like you. It seems like it's an entity, but it is really you. It's all these negative things that you've thought that nearly becomes this sort of separate entity, but it's still you. And you get caught in this false idea of who you are. Mm-hmm. And these false things. And I mean, and it's how do we break out of that? How do we break out of that false idea? We keep coming back to identity. How do we give tangible things like journaling or asking ourselves a question? What can we give to the people to help them break out of that identity? The first thing I think about, John, is honestly, it's awareness. If you realize that you're not happy, and you say to yourself, am I happy? Yes or no? No. Okay. There has to be an awareness factor to say, listen, okay, why am I not happy? Do I need to see a therapist? Do I need to see a coach? Do I need to Google online? Do I need to read a book? Do I need to watch a podcast? Do I need to do something? It seems that once there's an awareness, there has to be an action, and that not taking an action is an awareness that they're running from it. Because like you're saying with shame, what can we say to people to be able to break out of that? How did you break out of that? What exercises did your therapist have you do when you had that realization, like, oh my God, I've been buried under all this stuff? How can we give some people some tangible stuff that they can actually take action on? Well, I think your awareness is right on, because if we're not aware of the problem, like I also say, you could walk into a college math class and there's this math problem on the board, right? It's a problem, but you got no idea how to solve it. And it's the same thing with us. If we know there's a problem, we're aware of it. Now we need to take steps to solve it. Oftentimes it's going to take a coach, a therapist, psychologist, somebody who is trained in the right way to help you heal. And for people who don't, because not everybody needs to, I mean, I have 300 blogs, 300 articles on my blog site that talk about personal development, a whole lot of different subjects. And again, to answer that, you really need to know, okay, where is the situation? What is it that, because even with shame, there's a lot of situations shame could be on the arrogant side, and when you're there, you never see it because of the issues of you feel you think it's confidence, but where you're not, you're really trying to hide how poorly you feel about yourself. So it's really difficult for me from that question to give really solid answers. I mean, journaling would help again, but what do you journal about? Why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling this way? I would suggest that you find a coach or a counselor, number one, that you're comfortable with, but don't always remember that if they don't make you uncomfortable, then they probably aren't hitting the issue right.
They're not doing their job if they're not making you squirm.
Yeah. Again, it's for me, again, it's really difficult to give action steps at that point because everybody's case is different. And, if somebody said, "Hey, John, this is my situation. What would you recommend?" I could give them a little bit better answer than something quite as broad as you ask. I'm sorry to answer it that way, but it's really difficult not knowing what direction I'm going to be headed to help the person.
Yeah, no worries. And in a few minutes, we're going to give them your contact information so they can actually work with you and get some feedback with you on that. You mentioned it a few times. I want to talk about your book. What is your book about? And talk to me about what you learned most about yourself in writing that book.
Well, the book is called Shame on Me, Healing a Life of Shame-Based Thinking. And I just completed the second edition, which is an ebook. And the book really helped solidify some of these awareness things, these issues that I went through. One of the other thing that it did, it actually changed my life to want to become the shame doctor to help people, because again, I loved writing the book. It was great, but when I got through, that's where it was. And I think one of the most important things that the book states is that no matter how deep your damage is, you can always heal. As I said previously, again, comparing it to the physical damage, we get small cuts, they heal. Sometimes your damage could be an amputation. It could be a loss of something. It may never come back. You may have burned all over your body, but you've seen stories of people who have lost a limb or two, or have been burned, and they've come back and thrived. Not that they don't want their original body back, but they're never going to get it back. But they still healed. They still thrived. So it's possible. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. Major heart surgery takes a team of specialists, takes a team of therapists, of physical therapists, takes a lot of people. So these, if your wounds are deep, it's going to take time and a lot of work, a lot of effort, but it can be done. I think that's probably one of the most important things that I want people not only to take away from my book, but away from what we're saying today.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. I love it. I want to step back in time a little bit now. So you were talking about, you had these epiphanies at 50, I think you said 53. So for those 53 years of your life, you've had a lot of relationships, both with your family, friends, loved ones, why not, significant others. Have you gone back and revisited those people as the new John? I mean, do you still interface with these people, and do they see the difference? Talk to us about that dynamic of kind of going back in time, but you're not that person anymore.
It's funny because a lot of the people that, even including some of my family, were part of that organization. And a lot of my realizations and the awareness things and things that I've come really, that are the cornerstone of my belief, sort of rub them the wrong way. I'm
proud of you, John. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yeah. But there were some people, in that I dealt with in business that have known me before and after, and some people admire me for these things that I'm doing now. A lot of the awareness has has come through me, and just even seeing my growth. I've been with my fiance now for 7 years, and it's amazing to watch the growth on both our behalves, and that's something that everybody should celebrate, because we think growth is this 180 degree turn, and all of a sudden we're going this direction and we're going that direction, and it's not. We do some growth, and then maybe we do a little stumbling, and I guess none of that growth was real. No, it was real. Remember, emotional healing has to do with our emotions. It has to do with our beliefs in ourselves. So the best way for us to destroy that healing is to not believe it ever happened. That's the key. We have to, and we have to celebrate that. We have to look at those things. We have to look at that guy in the mirror and say, I love you. I respect you. No matter how hard it is, we keep doing that. It's going to get easier, but you got to do it only because you got to do it.
You got to do it because you got to do it. All right, I'm going to pause because normally I'm taking comments over here and stuff like that, but I've been so enthralled in the conversation. I haven't been over paying attention to people. We got, again, once for everybody, we got Nicole is here. She says, 2 wonderful souls, so different on the surface. Yes, we got a bunch of people. Nicole also said here, total sweetheart. I think she was referring to you. We got Tom Ginn in the house. Tom, what's up, brother? Good to see you. He says, hello, Chris and John. Tiffany was saying something you were saying was fire. I already put that on the screen, but you're fire too, Tiffany. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. You're a massively cool woman and a great mom. Tom says here, a friend of mine, Dr. John Kahn, I think it is. I got to put my glasses on. Said to me, children become what they see, not what they say. They are taking the parents or caregiver do. Yeah. Absolutely. They're setting the example. It's so true. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Robert says in the house, he goes, what's up? Christopher and John. That's my father's name. Appreciate you guys all for being here, whether you're live or on the replay. We love you guys for being here, and comment. If you're on the replay, comment. And if you have any questions, John and I can get back to you on that. But if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat right now. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up the show here in just a minute. I think Robert had a question earlier. Let's see. Robert says here, I'm grateful that I underrated that I am me. This is on my own, can take most of my time. Yeah, that is on my own. It's take most of my time. I have to get my glasses on. We got Monique in the house. What's up? Oh, this is what I said. Robert was saying you using it as a mirror. Yeah. I mean, we're all mirrors of one another. That's what I tell people to do, is to go to the mirror and have a conversation with themselves. That's one of the things I say. Go there and look at yourself in the mirror and let yourself know what you're made of. Go have that conversation. Go look in your own eyes. I did an experiment one time that I now do with my coaching clients. It was my own experiment at first. I was all drunk after a party, and I'd been showing people pictures when I was a kid, when I had long hair and all this other stuff. And so everybody left. I went on the patio and I had a cigarette. I'm looking at the pictures, and I picked this picture up of myself. And this is where I had the realization about the forgiveness factor of forgiving that little boy and kind of telling that little boy where he was going to be going in life. And so I'm here smoking a cigarette, half fuckered up on booze and whatnot. And I'm looking at this picture, and I had zero clue of what was going to happen next. But I sat there and I looked at the picture, and I was just like, oh man, I was cute. And look at my hair and whatever I was doing that day. And all of a sudden I locked into my eyes, or I locked into his eyes. That's the way I looked at it. I was like, and I just sat there and I looked at that little boy's eyes. And I say that little boy because obviously that's me, but that's a different version of me. And I just sat there, and this was back in 2004 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. It was a long time ago. And I just remember like, dude, and I just started talking to myself in this picture, and I went on this whole journey. Dude, you're going to go through so much stuff. Dude, you're going to be bullied. You're going to be picked on. You're going to become homeless. You're going to try to kill yourself, and you're going to suck at it. Thank you very much. Good job. You're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and then you're going to get a master's degree, and you're going to go back to the school you dropped out of. And I had this long conversation about all the stuff that I had been through. And at that point I said, dude, whatever you go through, it's not your fault. You're going to learn and grow from it. And what you're going to do is you're going to teach other people to get through that and grow through that. It's not going to be easy. Like you were saying before, John, it's not going to be easy. And I remember telling that little dude, I was like, dude, it's going to suck. You're going to cry. You're going to be scared. You're going to feel alone. You're going to have so many different emotions, but you're just going to keep going, and you're going to keep getting through, and you're going to keep getting stronger because that's who you are. That's who you are. And I just had that conversation. And from that point forward, I looked at the things that happened in my childhood, and I just realized it, because I thought it was part of my fault, but it wasn't my fault. necessarily. And once I forgave myself, I was able to start healing and able to, then that point, forgive people that, like my mom, I was finally able to forgive her because I processed through and I'm like, she did the best she could with what she had. She had a fucked up childhood with a mother that was psychotic. So I gave her leniency, and that helped my relationships. It helped my ability to receive love. It totally opened my eyes up. So yeah, man, this has been a great conversation. Final thoughts on the subject. What would you really like the listeners to walk away? You made that mention before, but in thinking about everything we've talked about, what can they walk away with in forms of thinking about things differently and taking some actions on their own?
Well, again, the whole shame is, like what I often say, is it's one of the biggest issues many of us will ever face, yet it is hidden in the shadows a lot of times. We don't even understand. We don't realize that the shame we experienced as a child causes us these issues as adults. And again, those things aren't always easy to see without somebody guiding you to help get you there. Chris, if you were probably a coach at the time, but being a coach helped you get there to understand, looking at that kid. But for me, had I never met my therapist, would I be where I was? I don't know. Now, believe me, I put in a lot of work, but you can't hammer a nail with your thumb. Somebody's got to give you a tool, and just because I give you the best hammer in the world doesn't make you a good carpenter. There's a lot of work to it. And the best thing that you can do is say, you know what? I got to stop blaming somebody else. I got to stop saying that I'm a drunk because I had bad parents. I'm a failure because I've had a bad teacher. We got to look to ourselves. Now, again, you can't have shame. You can have guilt. Say, you know what? I messed that up. I'm going to change it. Don't feel bad. Don't say, oh my, it's so bad I can never fix it, because that's again shame. But take the responsibility. That was one thing that I found out, that shame was, that must be God's reason why I'm not doing it, right? I was pushing my responsibility on other people.
Shame and blame.
Yeah. When say to yourself, okay, I got to take the responsibility. I got to do something about it. What that next step is, again, you may need to use a coach, you may need a therapist, but decide to yourself that you're going to do what it needs to be done to make that change.
Ooh, make that change. You guys got to decide it. You guys got choices. John, where can people get a hold of you?
Well, again, my website is, like you have on the screen, www.shamedoctor.com. And you can always email me at john@shamedoctor.com. Those are the best two ways to get a hold of me. On Instagram also. My book is available from my website. There's a buy the book button. It's an ebook that you'll download. You're always welcome to email me any questions you have about the book, because believe me, shame is a subject that I never get tired of.
I can tell. I mean, I'll have to have you back on the show to talk about more emotions and talk about how they all interrelate to shame, because, dude, it's been a fantastic time talking with you, getting to know you better. I love and appreciate you. I love the fact that you came on the Raw and Unscripted show, unsure of the questions I was going to ask, and just being on here and being vulnerable and sharing your story, sharing your passion, sharing your wisdom. Thank you. Guys, you got to reach out to them, connect with them. We all carry shame. We all carry that guilt. We all carry that. And who better to work with than somebody who has been through those trenches than Mr. John Dunia, the shame doctor. John, I'm going to place you backstage. I'm going to close out the show. Thank you. And don't go anywhere, because then we're going to talk backstage. But I appreciate you and for being on the show, and you can hear me close out. And guys, go connect with them. The Shame Doctor right there, shamedoctor.com for those of you guys listening on the podcast, and Instagram again at shamedoctor1, the number 1 on Instagram. Go connect with him, and of course, email him as well. So John, I'll be right with you, sir. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another show of the Raw and Unscripted variety, Raw and Unscripted variety. I got to be honest with you. Sometimes I get confused because I do the unfiltered experience on Friday nights. And there's sometimes where I called it the unfiltered raw experience or something like that. I call it the raw and unfiltered experience or something like that. Essentially both the same shows, but I have a co-host on the unfiltered experience on Friday. And we talk about more dynamic topics. We talk about Zen and source energy and cushy stuff like that. Actually, in a couple of weeks, we got some experts coming on talking about that stuff. But anyway, let's circle back here, Chris. Let's land this plane. Let's not even get into Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. No, here, the Raw Unscripted show. Sometimes I'm really weird. Do you ever realize that? I'm kind of tired. So seriously, having John here on the show tonight has been fantastic because we've had that raw and unscripted conversation about how we can really, honestly, the first step is recognizing that we're not happy in the situations that we're in. And we can ask ourselves the initial question, do I love myself? Yes or no? And that's a question I've asked a lot of people over the last 18 months in the complimentary coaching sessions that I provided, is asking them that question and seeing them on a Zoom going, yeah, I think so, for the most part, So if you have a challenge in answering that question, do I love myself? Yes or no? Then that's a place to start, because then it's like, okay, why? Start asking yourself the question, why? Peel back that onion, go decide that you want to go experience that pain, whatever it might be, because when you go through that and you process that, guess what? You become stronger and you become more able and you become more confident on the other side of that situation. Go watch The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell. It's on YouTube. It's a free documentary. It's called Finding Joe. The Hero's Journey. Ray, if you're still watching, you can put that up there for me, buddy. You always do that. It's a great job. You could do the link. I just watched it a couple of days ago. I told my buddy to watch it because I told him, I said, he's like, I'm so tired of having to go through stuff, Chris. I've been through so many challenges and everything else. I'm tired of going through it. I'm like, well, you need to watch this because, essentially what it is we leave home and then we go through a bunch of stuff and we learn a bunch of lessons and we come home and we teach other people how to do it. It happened in Star Wars. It happened in The Wizard of Oz. It happens in most movies when you think about, and that's why we watch it. We want to see that person go through that trial, that tribulation, that situation to come back and be stronger. We want to see him go through all the heartaches of trying to get the music career and then ultimately land on stage in front of 30,000 people. Why is it okay for us to want that for other people in the movies, but when we point the finger back at ourselves, we have a challenge. We have a challenge in doing that for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to start with awareness. You have to start with awareness. And after awareness, you have to take action. Okay. You can sit there and be aware and then be blind to that, but that's your own fucking fault. That is your own fault. If you're miserable, once you're aware, that is your fault. I mean, no excuses, coach. I love you, but it's serious. If you keep shooting yourself in the foot, stop pulling the trigger. I mean, think about it. I know I'm miserable, but I'm not doing anything about it. Then you start playing the hope, wish, and pray game. Oh, maybe it'll change. If you want something to change, you have to change. You have to change who it is that you're hanging out with. And if you have challenges in figuring out where to start, what to do, go see a therapist, go online and chat up a doctor, go watch videos about how to process shame and guilt, go figure out who and where you need to get your solutions from. But by God, take responsibility. If there's one thing that John said tonight is the fact that we have to take responsibility. We can't blame. We can't. I couldn't blame my mom for all the situations that I was. I used to blame her because I was like distant from people and I was kind of mean. I'm like, no, that's her. That's not me. I'm choosing to do that. And that's when I turned my life around and started reading a bunch of books about leadership and emotional intelligence. I dug deep into that. Childhood psychology. I dug deep into that. I've read thousands of personal development books, cassette tapes. I immersed myself in being the biggest geek and curious person about how I could fix myself, so that I could help other people do the same for themselves. And I'm using the word fix. Please don't quote me on that. I wanted to heal myself through my journey, and by the books and everything else and the coaching and the masterminds and the mentors and all the beautiful people I have in my life to this day is the reason why I'm still centered and successful. Who is your team? Who is your team? So many people don't even have a team. Who's the person that you trust? Who's the person that empowers you? Who's the person that holds you accountable? And who is your mentor? Who are the people that are on your team that you can call right now? Who can I say, who's your mentor? Who's the person that holds you accountable? Who's the person that empowers you? You got to have people in your life. Oh, I can't afford it, Chris. How big is your fucking TV? How many TVs do you have in your house? How many different ways could you get resourceful to start making money to be able to do something? Again, you have to take responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. If there's anything I can impart upon you is, Jesus, take fucking responsibility for yourself. It's not anybody's fault. Nobody else is going to come for you. You have to do this. And guess what? When you start telling the universe, you start telling source, God, whatever it is that you want to believe in, you start saying, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore. The pain of staying the same and being complacent and being mediocre, I can't do that anymore. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to go watch 5 YouTube videos a day and listen to a podcast and get an audiobook. I'm willing to read a book. I'm willing to go on and read articles and grow myself and dig into this, because when you start doing that, the answers will show up and the healing will start to happen. And those vicious cycles and those vicious beliefs that you believed that you were focusing on start to shift and start to change. And you shift and change who you associate with, and you shift and change what you focus on. And when you do that, you shift and change what your outcomes are. But if you have excuses like, oh, I don't feel like it, I don't know what to do, figure it out. Go Google it. Go Google it. Your life depends on it. You know why? Because you don't want to get to the end of your journey and regret all the choices and the decisions that you didn't make because you are afraid of somebody having a judgment for you. Come on, guys. Really? We're on a spinning blue marble in space. There used to be dinosaurs that walked where we live. Life goes by like that. Do you see me? I see you. Life goes by like that. I'm 52 years old. My son's going to be 5 years old at the end of November. Where'd the 5 years go? Guess what? In 5 years, I'll be 57. Guess what? In 5 years after that, I'll be 62. I think I don't do math very well. Time goes by like that. Think about the last 10 years. The next 10 years are going to go by faster unless you start taking action and start getting interested in your own life, getting disinterested in the news and the politics and the other things that don't serve you, that you cannot control. I'm so sick and tired of people sitting there. Oh, I'm so tired of this. And I'm so tired. Well, stop fucking looking at it. Stop bitching about it. Become a part of the solution. How about focusing on yourself instead of blaming and pontificating and summarizing and theorizing about what is going to happen next and all the conspiracy theory? How about just fucking living your life? How about just getting in love with yourself and in love with your family and being in the moments and saying, hey, man, I get to play with my kid right now. That's what I'm going to go do right now. I'm going to go get my kid a bath, and I'm going to pause here for a second because I do this wherever I go. I'm going to pause here for about 5 minutes after I get done talking to John. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going into dad mode. What is my intention? My intention is to be playful in dad mode. I'm not going to be interviewer mode. I'm going to be dad mode. So what do I got to do to get in dad mode? Let's be in dad mode. Baby shark, do, 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 baby shark. So seriously, guys, I'm here for you. Hit me up on the coaching. If you have not coached with me, if you have not had a complimentary coaching session, hit me up. I'll give it to you for free. Complimentary. It's just you and I on a Zoom, just talking about some big thing that you have in your life that I can help you with. It's your choice whether to stay stuck. It's your choice whether to stay miserable, and it's your choice whether or not you have regrets. I love you guys. I love you guys. I am going to, I'll be checking out the comments here. We got, let me just capture them real quick here. Robert, thank you so much, man, for being here. I appreciate you, brother. He says, thank you, Christopher and John. Angel is the house. She says, have a good evening, everybody. Peace. Angel, I think I'm going to be talking to Alexis Thursday. It's going to be amazing. Oh, guys, you guys got to see Alexis on my show. That's going to be fun. Ray says, thank you, guys. Appreciate you, Ray, brother. I love you. Got Aaron Keith in the house. He goes, I like weird Chris. You like weird Chris? Come on over to my house, son. I'll show you weird Chris. Ray's putting this up. Ray, you're such an awesome dude. Ray, if you have not watched that, go watch that and talk to me after you watch that. It's such a great fucking film. It's like an hour and 12 minutes or something like that, but it explains and it shows why we go through things. It's massive. It's free. Just go do it, guys. I would love to have your comments on that. What Aaron says here, you are the star of your own show, and that show would be, fuck, I got to do this. All right. Sorry. There we go, guys. Old age. You are the star of your own show, and that show would be boring if the main character just went to work, came home, and watched Netflix every night. The world is vast and abundant. Let's explore. Yes, you got that, Aaron Keith. I appreciate you, man. He says, I appreciate Chris and Raditya. What's up? What's up? I think we met on Clubhouse too, if I'm not mistaken, because your name is very unique. But I love and appreciate you guys so much. We got a great show coming up next week. And again, like I said before, go check out the podcast. It's in the comments up here somewhere. Anyways, yeah, I think it's right there. Yep. Go check it out. I love you guys. See you next time on the Raw and Unscripted show. I'm Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach, and I am out of here.